Last time on Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
You ever wonder why we're here?
It's one of life's great mysteries, isn't it? Why are we here? I mean, are we the product of some cosmic coincidence? Or is there really a god watching everything? You know, with a plan for us and stuff. I don't know, man, but it keeps me up at night.
What? I meant, why are you here, working on this stupid Yu-Gi-Oh! Video?
Oh. Yeah.
What was all that stuff about God?
Nothing.
You want to talk about it?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Come on, you better play your cards right. Come on and get your game on.
この番組はコナミとご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
Why were we put on this island? Just to suffer. Every night, I check my deck, and my spells, even my monsters, the duels I've lost, the duelists I've defeated. Won't stop comboing. It's like they're all still drolled. Alright, cool space guy. So, what even is a Neos, anyway? Well, aside from being an Ultraman homage, at least in part, a monster in the vein of Dark Magician, introduced in Season 2 of the GX anime in order to further expand the scope of Jaiden's super-heroic deck theme, as well as a pretty significant innovator of what the modern extra deck would be today. Neos is the birth of Contact Fusion, aka fusion monsters that can be played without the use of an external fusion card or activated effect to summon them. It's a very common thought that Contact Fusion was a sort of prototype synchro summon, and it's easy to see why, considering what we have now is essentially no different fundamentally than Neos' good old slap two your monsters on the board together to play a new guy for no cost thing. Back then we had Aquans and Plasma, today we have... the more things change. Thematically, however, Neos was meant to represent a fresh start and a new step forward for Jaiden as a character and the elemental heroes as a deck theme, and in many ways, Neos continues to do so in the real world today. Unfortunately, Neos was never the best example of his own innovative gameplay style. However, I'm not really interested in exploring him in that particular light. For this video, I'm going to try and consider the deck in a modern context, with modern support in mind. So I won't waste your time digging into and critiquing the limitations of the cards for what they were capable of in the old days. As I said way back at the start, that video has already been made. Mind you, a lot of them still suck, but they're certainly a hell of a lot better than they were before. And no, I'm not going to talk about Rush Duel exclusives. That's a whole other can of worms that is far outside the scope of not just the regular card game, but this video in particular. Rush Duel really ain't my scene, and they're not mixable with anything I'm talking about here anyway, so TLDR, I think they look cool, but I wish they were mainlines instead. Moving on. Alright, folks, let's do this. One last time. Elemental Hero Neos is a 7-star light attribute normal warrior monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. Neos is obviously the central card here, but he's kind of also the central problem when looking at the deck as its own archetype. Being a level 7 normal monster means there really isn't a consistent way to get him out on the field for his Contact Fusion gimmick, at least not without using other cards and jumping through hoops. Other archetypes have successfully used his basic concept as a central gimmick monster to create multiple extra deck forms of. A very tokusatsu concept actually, so it's a wonder why the Ultraman pastiche couldn't get it right. But they're lucky enough to either not be vanillas or at least have better cards supporting them. Maybe if he had a way to jump on the field from the hand easily, but he doesn't, because the precedent to break away from Dark Magician's template hadn't really been established yet. It's a shame, too, since I think Neos has a really strong design and concept as a boss monster, and thematically fits Jaiden's character growth in Season 2 very well. On his own, Neos is an iconic, flawed monster from the GX era, but has always kept a special place in my heart and the hearts of many. Although, before we can even begin to get into all that, we need to address the giant Neo-Spacian shaped aliens in the room. When Neos was new, it was actually kind of hard to truly consider him an elemental hero, since the deck that he supported, and vice versa, had almost no connections to the deck outside some vague thematic similarities and being called heroes by Jaden in the anime. Which begs the question on why they weren't just made into a proper new wave of E-heroes in the first place, but this is how history played out, so we're stuck with what we got. Neo-Spacian Aquadolphin is a level 3 water warrior monster with 600 attack and 800 defense. Once per turn, you can discard one card, look at your opponent's hand, and choose one monster. If you control a monster with attack greater than or equal to the attack of the chosen card, destroy the chosen card, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent, otherwise, take 500. He was the first of his kind, and to this day, Aquos might be one of the most bizarre cards to come out of GX as far as the TCG is concerned. From being considered a crappy nothing of a monster to some ridiculous competitive relevance in the mid-2010s because of Noble Knights of all things, to coming back around to being one of the more objectively useful Neo-Spacians to run in a modern hero deck if you want to go that route, all because hand sniping has become a, quite frankly, insane type of effect to have on modern card design. And thanks to Darklaw, kind of a hero staple. He's got a, interesting fan base. Just, don't Google him. If you know, you know. Elemental hero Aqua Neos is a level 7 water warrior fusion monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and he's a contact fusion of Neos and Aquadolphin. Must be special summoned from your extra deck by shuffling the above cards you control into the deck. You do not use polymerization. Once per turn, you can discard one card, destroy one random card in your opponent's hand. During the end phase, shuffle this card into the deck. And yes, we will be omitting the contact fusion shuffle effect thing for all future entries, because, come on. Similar to Dolphin, Aqua Neos has managed to eke out some decent playability in the modern day thanks to a bunch of recent support cards making it really easy to cheat him out. The new Flame Wingman retrain being the key example. Given that he's got all the benefits Aquadolphin has, minus the looking at your opponent's hand part anyway, he's actually what I'd consider one of the most playable Neos fusions. Neo-Spacian Flare Scarab is a level 3 fire insect monster with 500 attack and defense, and it gains 400 attack for each spell and trap your opponent controls. Fair warning, after Aquadolphin, the number of things to say about the Neo-Spacians only shrinks more and more. Scarab is kind of just there. He's so simple and so nothing that I can't really think of much to say about him. Out of all these guys, he's the most plain, and probably one of the last ones you'd ever actually consider running. I won't even get into how silly it is that he's reliant on your opponent having massive back row advantage to start being a semi-okay beatstick. Elemental hero Flare Neos is a level 7 Fire Warrior fusion monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and he gains 400 attack for each spell and trap on the field. Similar to Aqua Neos, I think Flare has some potential playability in the modern day due to how easy it is to summon him. I mean, he'd just be another attack manipulating beatstick and an archetype already packed to the brim and bursting at the seams of attack manipulating beatsticks, but yeah. That's the end of that bot. Neo-Spacian Air Hummingbird is a level 3 wind-winged beast monster with 800 attack and 600 defense, and once per turn, you can gain 500 life points for each card in your opponent's hand. Hummingbird had some decent use back when life points actually kind of meant something, but like Scarab, that conversation kind of stops there. The most interesting thing about Hummingbird is that his fusion form has never been reprinted in English for extremely convoluted and confusing reasons that have only gotten more convoluted and confusing. Speaking of, Elemental Hero Air Neos is a level 7 Wind Warrior fusion monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and while your life points are lower than your opponent's, this card gains attack equal to the difference. The card itself isn't really anything special, he's just an okay attack buff beatstick if you really want another one of those. Honestly, the most noteworthy thing about this card is Konami's bizarre refusal to reprint it and the fucking ridiculous rumor mill that spun out of that fact, leading to insane price gouging of it online from people who think it'll never see the light of day again due to a guy named Craig. Ugh, I really have no idea if that's the most aggravating or funniest fucking thing I've ever heard. Only Yu-Gi-Oh! I swear. Neo-Spacian Grand Mole is a level 3 Earth Rock monster with 900 attack and 300 defense. Grand Mole was once a staple, if you can believe it. There was actually a time where using up your normal summon to out one problematic monster was actually a pretty sound play. And yeah, he enjoyed that time in the spotlight and was even on the Forbidden and Limited list for a couple of years before power creep took its toll. Elemental Hero Grand Neos is a level 7 Earth Warrior fusion with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls, return that target to the hand. With modern sensibilities in mind, Grand Neos can actually serve as a potentially decent side deck tech. Spot bouncing is not by any means a terrible effect, even if it's been a little bit power-crept. Neo-Spacian Glow Moss is a level 3 light plant monster with 300 attack and 900 defense. If this card attacks or is attacked, your opponent draws one type of card and shows it. Then, based on its type, you apply this effect. Monster, and the battle phase. Spell, if this card is attacking, you can change it to a direct attack. Trap, change this card to defense position. If all of that sounded insane and frankly god-awful, it's because it was, and is. There's a neat idea in Glowmoss, honestly, but it's the Neo-Spacian that feels the most like it was made for a bit. In reality, the people designing him were just fucking around because they needed something extremely specific for an extremely specific situation in an extremely specific duel in the anime. This is where the real cards are made, ladies and gentlemen. Elemental Hero Glow Neos is a level 7 light warrior monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. Once per turn, during your main phase, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy that target. Then apply a following effect based on its type. Monster, the card cannot attack this turn. Spell, this card can attack your opponent directly this turn. Trap, change this card to defense position. I think this card is strong proof that no amount of modern support can ever save a concept as inherently flawed as Glowmoss. This is technically better, yes, but still mired with limitations and baffling drawbacks on an effect so common today that most people wouldn't even consider it a noteworthy selling point. Oh, but don't worry, it scales really high, thanks Death Battle. Neo-Spacian Dark Panther is a level 3 Dark Beast effect monster with 1000 attack and 500 defense. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls until the end phase. This card's name becomes that monster's original name, and also replace this effect with any of that monster's original effects, if any. I've always felt that Panther had so much potential that's just left untapped. Effect copiers have always been a fascinating little part of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and I personally find them really unique and cool. Turning your opponent's own cards against them is always going to be one of those extremely Yu-Gi-Oh kind of mechanics that gets a smile out of me. It's just a shame that increasingly specific types of effects have rendered a card like Panther just kind of sloppy and hard to use. And I feel similarly about Elemental Hero Dark Neos, a level 7 Dark Warrior with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. If this card is not already targeting a monster with its effect, you can target one face-up effect monster on the field. While you control this face-up, that target's effect on the field is negated. This honestly had something to it. A spot negate back in the late 2000s would have been a genuinely solid effect if it had the wherewithal to be in a deck that actually managed to keep it on the field. It does have that now, but the idea of a non-quick effect target-based negation is certainly not the innovative effect it could have been back then, and is demonstrably slow. Maybe it could potentially come back around to decent use someday. I kind of doubt it, but anything's possible, I guess. You may think we're done with the classic Neo-Spacian lineup, but no, unfortunately neither I nor you, dear viewer, are quite that lucky. Next is a normal spell that reads, send one face-up Neo-Spacian you control to the graveyard. Special summon one level 4 monster with the same name from your extra deck. Next is a fascinating little pile of space garbage that the everlasting blight upon my existence that is Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 3 dumped into the world for the sole purpose of making my life just another minor degree more miserable in another new and creative way. It summons the creative, if you want to be generous, retrains of the Neo-Spacians. All 2 of them. And no, this is not a call to make more. Please do not make more. Please. Neo-Spacian Marine Dolphin is a level 4 water warrior with 900 attack and 1100 defense. This card's name is also treated as Neo-Spacian Aqua Dolphin. This card cannot be special summoned except with Nex. Once per turn, you can discard one card to look at your opponent's hand and select one monster within it. If you control a monster with attack greater than or equal to the selected monsters, destroy the selected monster and inflict 500 damage to your opponent. It's a slightly better Aqua Dolphin, and I don't actually hate it. This card is arguably more playable in Heroes now than the original Aqua Dolphin, due to all the new support we have now that can cheat him out of the extra deck for free and be used for all sorts of combos. Even if his effect is minusculely different from the original, he enables you to go into an actual, really playable classic Neos fusion. That being Elemental Hero Marine Neos, a level 8 water warrior with 2800 attack and 2300 defense. Once per turn, you can destroy one random card in your opponent's hand. And he doesn't go back. He stays on the field. What was once perhaps the most frustratingly unplayable good card ever conceived, which is actually now very playable thanks to the aforementioned modern support. It gives you a free hand snipe at no cost, which you can do even after using Marine Dolphin's effect, which is frankly incredible. The fact that it's legit playable now at all is even more so. The fact that it doesn't even have the drawback of needing to go back to the extra deck so you can keep it around if you choose is just mwah. After Power of the Elements dropped, there was a really fun period of time where people were theory crafting with this card, and it led to some super interesting end boards. I don't currently run a build around it anymore, but you totally could if you wanted to, and that's just so awesome. Honestly, autism be damned, my boy can work the grill. Twinkle Moss, a level 4 light plant monster with 500 attack and 1100 defense, has not aged a day because she was always bad. When this card attacks or attacks, draw one card. The rest is identical to Glow Moss. It is identical in any other way except you draw the card. That is the only difference. Even making her a reverse Glow Moss that lets you plus doesn't make the way Glow Moss is designed any less perplexing or difficult for difficult's sake. I mean, she looks cooler, I guess. But can she be redeemed by modern support like Marine Dolphin? Well, we'll find out after looking at Elemental Hero Twinkle Neos, which is not a card that exists, but if it did, it would destroy the modern meta and bring every other deck to their knees, single-handedly making Neos the greatest monster in existence. Promise. Now with all the classic Spacians and their fusion counterparts done for, we have a good idea of what the core of the deck focuses around and can dig deeper into the cards that support the whole shebang. And we'll swing around to the rest of the Neos fusions later, and sooner than you may think, actually, because now we must deal with the babies. These abominations of God, called the Chrysalis archetype, all have the same shared effect of... By tributing this card with Neo-Space on the field, special summon one Neo-Spacian of corresponding name from your deck or your hand. The only differences between these are the mild differences in stats, which isn't really worth wasting your time or mine. These are all absolutely terrible, and I really don't feel like talking about them at all, so can we just, like, collectively agree they're not real? Yeah? Alright, cool, thanks. The last anime original main deck monster of this archetype, and from the classic lineup, is Crossporter, a level 2 Dark Warrior monster with 400 attack and defense. You can send one monster you control to the graveyard and special summon one Neo-Spacian monster from your hand. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Neo-Spacian from your deck to your hand. They really tried with this one, didn't they? All the elements to make this card good are there, but they just had to muck around and make it more complicated than necessary. Get it was the mid-2000s, but they really couldn't have just made it summon a Neo-Spacian from the hand or just search one outright like Stratos. All the pieces were there, they could have had something. Elemental Hero Neos Alias is a level 4 Light Warrior Gemini effect monster with 1900 attack and 1300 defense, and the Gemini effect of having its name become Elemental Hero Neos while on the field. I've already covered Alias before in the final start to finish video, and like I've said before, his value is much more evident as a hybrid E-Hero and Gemini than actually being a Neos card. His unique stat combination unintentionally made him a great control beater combo piece over a decade ago, but none of that helps Neos at all. They're just sort of inherently badly designed for doing what they're supposed to do. It's honestly just luck and creative thinking from the community that made this card as noteworthy as it was. I still love the little dude, but I feel like most people ironically don't even think about Neos when looking at him. Neo-Space Pathfinder is a level 4 light warrior with 1800 attack and 800 defense. You know one of these? One of the guys that does a this to grab a one of those? Yeah, this is one of that. It's a that, but for an objectively bad card that classic Neos builds were reliant on. More on that later. The first new Neo-Spacian related card in many a year since GX ended came in the form of Neo-Space Connector, a card in many ways trying to be a reference to and an improvement on what Pathfinder was trying to do in the first place. Connector is a level 4 light warrior with 800 attack and 1800 defense, and when it's normal summoned, you can special summon one Neo-Spacian or one Elemental Hero Neos from your hand or deck in defense position. You can tribute this card, then target one Neo-Spacian or Neos in your graveyard to special summon in defense position. You can only use each effective connector once per turn. Honestly, not bad at all. It was clearly made with the intent on being a band-aid for a lot of the issues the deck had by offering some easy swarming ability. That did not give Neos any relevancy or even niche rogue play, but instead allowed Noble Knights to go insane with Aqua Dolphin. Well, at least they tried. failed successfully. If you're building a pure Neos deck, this little dude is basically your Strato, so act accordingly. The next piece of legacy Neos support would take a very interesting form. Elemental Hero Honest Neos is a level 7 light warrior monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. Quick effect. You can discard this card, then target one hero monster on the field. It gains 2500 attack until the end of this turn. Quick effect. You can discard one hero monster. This card gains attack equal to the discarded monster's attack until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Honest Neos once per turn. When this card came out, it was honestly a very welcome addition to most hero decks, and finally found a way to fold a Neos card back into the mainline hero strategy in a way that felt organic and unobtrusive, by not really being a Neos card in anything but name. But hey, it was a good OTK pusher and could serve as insurance against annoying Utopia Lightning style cards that wanted to get cheeky with your Absolute Zero. You know who you are. I know you're watching. He still is a pretty good card, actually. The only real viable hero hand trap outside of, like, what, 3 others? I'd say I feel bad for Blade Master, but then I'd be a liar. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, he doesn't support the Neos playstyle at all, or even count as a Neos replacement for fusions. He's good, just not made to be a Neos card. Just an excuse to keep Neos' tenuous connection to a deck he barely had any association with in the first place. Season 4 reference is pretty cool, though. Elemental Hero Spirit of Neos is another retrain that says, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense, and if you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is special summoned, you can add from your deck to your hand one Polymerization or one spell or trap that mentions an E-Hero monster by name. During your main phase, you can shuffle this card into the deck. If you do, special summon one E-Hero normal monster from your deck. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. The first actually decent, nay, good, nay, great Neos retrain to ever exist. One that actually supports Neos and regular E-Heroes on top of that. Spirit is a massive underutilized powerhouse of a combo piece in hero decks in general, being able to grab basically any modern hero support card due to Konami finally figuring out a way to search hero back row in a way that doesn't require an introductory course in Small World to fathom. Basically, from this card onwards, the new standard method to search hero spells and traps is by printing a specific monster name on it, which can then be searched by cards like Spirit. A genuinely ingenious way to introduce searchable back row without excluding nearly every support card that came before, and also not just doing the lazy thing of giving every new one the name Hero in the title. It turns out that taking advantage of GX's bizarre fixation on extremely specific monster support cards would actually do some good in the long run. Funny that, because yeah, believe it or not, it can also make use of the older, admittedly almost all bad, classic support cards, giving them some potential new life if you're clever enough to figure out a way to make them work. And seriously, you don't need convoluted combos to get him out. There's plenty of good options to cheat him out on the board for basically nothing. He's awesome. Play him. Crosskeeper is not a retrain of Neos, but a new spin on Cross Porter. He's a level 2 Dark Warrior with 400 attack and defense, and you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon one Elemental Hero or Neo-Spacian monster from your hand or graveyard, but negate its effects if summoned from the graveyard. If you special summon a Hero Fusion monster while this card is in your graveyard except during damage step, you can banish this card, draw 2 cards, then replace 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. I really like this card. It's a great example of this new era of trying to bridge all the gaps between Jaden's various deck themes, and I think it's an extremely successful execution of that idea. I think the only reason not a lot of people run it is that the hero main deck is just way too tight these days, because a built-in Monster Reborn / free from hand summon with added draw effect on a card easily searchable by Rhoda has all the makings of a staple. The only downside is that it's hard to mix with Vision Heroes, which, good. Fucking sick of those things anyway. As an update to Cross Porter, it's maybe not the Stratos-like retrain we might have hoped for Neo-Spacians, but now we have Connector for that, so this going in its own direction is fine with me. It feels very much in the spirit of a GX anime card, you know? And I think at its best, that's what the modern Neo support is really good at. Now for something completely different. Miracle Ejector is a level 3 Earth spellcaster with 400 attack and defense. It's always treated as an elemental hero, and you can send one Neo-Spacian from your deck to the graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. If it is normal or special summoned, you can add a spell or trap that mentions an E-Hero monster name from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. You can only use each effective ejector once per turn. What a, frankly, stunningly great card. The free summon, the search, the bonus DD Crow. What a monster. So good, it legitimately pushed the Vision Hero engine out of my main deck entirely. You literally cannot get support that links the two decks better than this. We have come a long way. We now return to cover the rest of the Neos fusions outside the basic original lineup, starting off with the classic triple fusions. Elemental Hero Magma Neos is a level 9 warrior with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. It's a fusion of Neos, Flare Scarab, and Grand Mole, and it gains 400 attack for each card on the field. Once per turn during the end phase, shuffle the card back into the deck, but when it's shuffled back this way, you return all cards on the field to the hand. It's a great card, sure, but not really for its attack buffing. Lord knows that's the least special effect a Hero Fusion could have. No, it's good for its actually stupidly powerful field clearing effect when it leaves, if only it could actually be summoned easily by any modern Neo support that would also allow it to take advantage of that effect, which it really can't. Elemental Hero Storm Neos, a level 9 Wind Warrior with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, a fusion of Neos, Air Hummingbird, and Aqua Dolphin, and once per turn you can destroy all spell and traps on the field, and when it's shuffled back into the deck, it destroys all cards on the field. Different stats, similar story. Storm Neos' return effect is pretty nuts, even more so by having a heavy storm effect packed in as his default one. With a quick effect, he'd be a really scary monster to contend with. I guess as a going second card, it has some potential. Elemental Hero Chaos Neos is a level 9 Dark Monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, and it's a fusion of Neos, Dark Panther, and Glowmoss. Once per turn, during the end phase, you shuffle this card into the extra deck, and if you do, set all face-up monsters on the field. Once per turn, during your main phase, you can toss a coin 3 times. If you get 3 heads, destroy all monsters your opponent controls, 2 heads for the rest of the turn, face-up monsters your opponent controls are negated, and 1 head, return all monsters you control to the hand. Okay. Chaos's return effect isn't nearly as devastating as the previous two by any stretch of the imagination, and unfortunately it seems the Glowmoss infection was just too strong to matter for his default effect. I mean, you have a 2 out of 3% chance to throw some curveball at the opponent, and a third of a chance to auto-lose. It's becoming increasingly clear that anything even vaguely related to Glowmoss isn't just bad, it's an active risk to your game state. Okay, now we're talking. Rainbow Neos is a level 10 Light Warrior fusion with 4500 attack and 3000 defense. It's a fusion of Neos and any ultimate crystal monster. Once per turn, you can activate one of his effects. Send one monster you control to the graveyard to shuffle all monsters your opponent controls into the deck. One spell or trap you control to the graveyard to shuffle all spells and traps your opponent controls to the deck. Or send a card from the top of your deck to the graveyard to shuffle all cards from your opponent's graveyard into their deck. Rainbow Neos. A classic among classics. Card beloved by Hero and Crystal Beast fans alike. Truly uniting us, like a card representing the bond between Jaden and Jesse should. A real boss monster's boss monster. And probably the card most befitting of the title of Hero's Ultimate Monster. I think this is a card nobody actually really dislikes. It was one of the main ways of playing Heroes as a rogue strategy in the days before Hero Beat took off as a genuine contender. If only this card had some form of inherent protection or quick effect, that's the only thing stopping this card from being extremely viable in the modern day. I do still think it's kind of weird that it's not considered a hero monster by any stretch. Not even in the effect text, so it can't benefit from any actual hero support, which kind of sucks. But then again, Chaos Neos apparently likes to moonlight as Rainbow Dragon, so I guess it's all in the family one way or another. Neos Wiseman is not a fusion monster, but it is, technically, in the anime at least, and in Korea, I guess? Either way, it's a level 10 light spellcaster monster with 3000 attack and defense, and cannot be normal summoned or set. It must only be special summoned from the hand by sending one Neos and Yubel from your monster zone to the graveyard. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects, and at the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of the monster it battled, and you gain life points equal to that monster's defense. If it wasn't obvious, Wiseman was originally made as a fusion between Neos and Yubel, and while not making him one was a bizarre choice, I don't know if it would have made him any better back then. Today, maybe, but who's to say that would even be worth the effort? Symbolically, I think it's a pretty cool idea. Much like how Rainbow Neos represented Jaden and Jesse's friendship, Wiseman represents the union of all of Jaden's plot-important cards, with Wing Karibo even getting in on it by acting as the discard fodder for Super Poly in the anime. That's all pretty great and all, but not being a fusion monster in the actual game has rendered it pretty much a non-entity for either deck. Well, I guess we'll never know what a real Yubel and Neos fusion would have looked like. Anyway, so our next card is Elemental Hero Neos Kluger. A level 9 light spellcaster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. It's a fusion of Neos and Yubel. Hey, wait up. And before damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. If this face-up card is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect while its owner controls it, you can summon one Neo-Spacian from your hand or deck ignoring summoning conditions. You can only use this effect of Neos Crooker once per turn. Coming out over a decade later is a long-awaited correction that really should have not needed to exist in the first place. Kluger's effects aren't technically as good as Weissman's on paper, but you can actually summon the damn thing, so take what you can get. It even brings out the original Weissman as a floating effect, which is neat if you want to run the world's most okayish brick. I honestly feel like there's definitely something here with potential, especially with all the Yubel support we have now. Tying in Jaden's non-hero monsters back into his deck in some way has been a theme of Konami's for the past couple of years, and I hope that means we haven't seen the last of Yubel connectivity. Neo-Spacian Yubel, anyone? The final Neos and hero monster ever shown in the GX anime was, appropriately, Elemental Hero Divine Neos, a level 12 light warrior monster with 2500 attack and defense. He must be fusion summoned by using any 5 Neos, Neo-Space, Neo-Spacian, or hero monsters, including at least one of each, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. Once per turn, you can banish one Neos, Neo-Space, Neo-Spacian, or hero from your graveyard. This card gains 500 attack, and until the end phase, it also gains that banished monster's effects. Divine he may be in name, the way this card plays is anything but godly. While his effect and summon requirements are technically a step up from the anime, that doesn't make him easy to summon, and still requires you to use 5 whole monsters at minimum, including a Neo-Spacian, which, while not undoable, can be a bit tricky to make work in a non-Neo-Spacian centered version of Hero. The fact you can't banish multiple cards from the graveyard to give him like a dozen different monster effects at once is an understandable limitation, if a friggin' lame one. Future Fusion is a shell of its former self now, making a card like this even harder to summon than it would have been back in the day. I would know, I tried to do this all the time. God, you know, when you think about it, Future Fusion being a Shadal fusion type effect for any fusion in the game was kinda nuts. Like, no wonder they had to nuke it to hell twice over. Anyways, though, for supposedly being the ultimate form of Neos, this card has faded into obscurity even for most hero players and fans of GX, due in no small part to being part of a Japanese exclusive season, meaning not a lot of people are gonna have enough nostalgic fondness to try and make them work. What's a god to a rainbow, anyway? The first post-canon representation of Neos in the E-Heroes, outside of card game originals, came in the form of a Neos Knight from the Bonds Beyond Time movie. He's a level 7 light warrior with 2500 attack and 1000 defense. He requires Neos and any warrior monster, and he must be fusion summoned. He gains attack equal to half the original attack of the warrior fusion material used for its summon, except for Neos. And it can make a second attack during each battle phase, but your opponent takes no battle damage from attacks involving it. While it was really cool to see a new hero fusion at the time, it really wasn't much more than just a nostalgic wink at Jaden's tendency to throw out new fusions he seemingly pulls out of nowhere by having him combine Neos with one of Yusei's signature junk synchros. Kinda wish they leaned a bit more into that aesthetic-wise, but whatever, I guess. At the time, it was really neat to see, even if the card itself was nothing special. You gotta remember, we were near the end of the 5Ds era at this point, and well past the introduction of the Omni Heroes and Gemini Beat. Hero decks had far evolved past a point where a card like this could have been a useful option, even if he was the first hero monster to use a generic monster type as a fusion requirement instead of a specific attribute. Not a bad thing to trailblaze, and something a couple of other hero monsters would end up adopting a few years later. Cool monster he may be, but just a decade too late to be useful. Speaking of cards that drew upon Neos Knight's ideas, Elemental Hero Brave Neos is a level 7 light warrior fusion with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and he's a fusion of Neos and any level 4 or lower effect monster. He must be fusion summoned and gains 100 attack for each Neo-Spacian and hero monster in your graveyard. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add one spell or trap from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Elemental Hero Neos in its text. With fusion requirements that good, it's hard to argue with the fact that this card is downright solid. With fusion requirements like that, who needs synchros? Kind of a prototype for what later cards like Spirit of Neos would perfect. There's actually a couple of really good cards this thing can search. Neos' name has been popping up on a lot of more generic good stuff lately, and with the original vanilla being actively included in a lot of people's modern hero builds, his extremely generous materials are hard to say no to. From what I understand, this card was an absolute menace in Duel Links apparently. I don't play Duel Links, but I listen to the funny anime voice lines on YouTube to give my aging soul that small hit of nostalgia to occasionally get me through my day, but nice to know such an underloved card got some play elsewhere. Also, he's brave. Elemental hero Nebula Neos is a level 9 Earth Warrior triple fusion with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. He's a fusion of Neos, Grand Mole, and Dark Panther, and if he's special summoned from the extra deck, you draw cards equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, then negate the effects of one face-up card on the field until the end of the turn, and when he returns to the extra deck, you can banish all cards on the field face down. A new triple fusion in the tradition of the old, Nebula Neos is actually a pretty respectable addition to the lineup. Having a similarly devastating shuffle back effect, and frankly crazy good on summon effect, this guy would be a real terror if you could summon him easier. Yeah, that's the thing. Following the old triple fusion so closely means he also brought their big weakness back out with him, namely the fact that not a lot of modern Neos or hero support cards can bring him out that easily. Maybe that's for the best, since if he was easily splashable, it would become a bit much, I think. Although, to be fair, with Ejector, well, anything's possible these days. On that note, fucking Cosmo Neos. Fuck you. A level 11 light fusion quadruple fusion of Neos and any 3 different attributed Neo-Spacians. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can, for the rest of this turn, make it so your opponent cannot activate cards, and also cards your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. And, during the end phase, when he shuffles back, destroy all cards your opponent controls. Now you may be thinking, that card is insane. How are we not finding ways to turbo it out as quickly as possible and auto-win by skipping the opponent's turn? Well, with Ejector, now we kinda are. Yeah, now we kinda are. Yeah, so, it is worth noting that there are ways around this. You see, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects of the ones they control. And what's the difference, you might be asking? Well, they can activate effects in the hand and the graveyard, just not the ones that go onto the field to activate, like most spell cards. So, yeah, most of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks can dodge this card, but it's still incredibly powerful and kinda easy to set up now, so you didn't hear it from me. Armed Neos is a level 10 Wind Warrior fusion with 3500 attack and 3000 defense, and he's a fusion of Neos and any armed dragon. He must be fusion summoned, and if he's special summoned, you can choose one dragon in your graveyard and destroy all monsters your opponent controls with an equal or lower level. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can make this card gain the following effect. During the main phase, quick effect, you contribute this card to summon any elemental hero fusion monster from your extra deck, ignoring summoning conditions. There was a fantastic card in here somewhere. I genuinely believe that. It feels like it was meant to be a going second card, which is kind of a problem in a deck that crashes and burns and dies unless you can play around like 2 hand traps max, let alone a fully built field full of potential disruptors. Conceptually, I adore the idea of a Neos card that can tag out into any of the other ones, even the harder to play ones like Cosmo or Divine or potentially even Rainbow, and especially continuing the theme of Neos fusing with the ace monsters of Jaden's friends. The design of this guy rocks, and with a great color scheme and distinct details that evoke not only Neos and Armed Dragon, but Sub-Chaz's iconic Ich, J, Hyuk, Sun, Monchome Sanda, with lightning effect and all. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll get cards that make heroes as a whole much less of a turn 1 glass cannon, and we can finally start chazzing it up. There is a point in the script where this was the end of it, and I was about to go into the final monster, but things have been taking a while, and not only have cards like Ejector come out since this script was first written, we got a very surprising addition in Evil Hero Neos Lord, a level 10 Dark Fiend fusion with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, summoned with Neos or any fusion that mentions it, and any effect monster on the field, only with Dark Fusion. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. If this card is special summoned, or a monster sent to your opponent's graveyard while this card's on the field, you can just straight up steal an opponent's monster. It's yours. You own it now. Belongs to you. You can only use this effective Neos Lord once per turn. This one really took me by surprise, I gotta say. Never really expected them to actually make an evil hero version of Neos, but I'm not upset at it. At first I thought this card was kinda downright bad, frankly. The whole awkward idea of trying to make more Neos support for a deck that doesn't really tie in with Neos' playstyle at all felt super counterintuitive, and initially it left me really lukewarm. Then I played it for a couple of weeks, and I stuck with it for months. This thing is a menace of a problem for the opponent, and I have no idea how I did not initially see the potential in a near indestructible monster that steals your opponent's stuff when they try to play anything. I was surprised to hear the guys at my old local scene groan and sigh when they saw him hit the field after I came back, and these are some YCS level players too, so that was a big shocker. My only complaint with him is that I wish he was a bit easier to play without jumping through the whole evil hero hoop, but man, I can't argue with the results. With that surprising pivot out of the way, you're probably expecting the next monster, but I'm gonna save him to the end, because I want to end this video on the highest note possible. And would you believe we're only about 70% done? Oof, we are in it for the long haul, lads. Circling back to the mid-2000s again, we have to talk about the Neo that all these wacky marketable creatures are Spacians of, the field spell Neo-Space. Its effect reads that elemental hero Neos and all fusions that specifically list it as a fusion material gain 500 attack. Fusion monsters that list Neos as a fusion material do not have to activate their effects during the end phase that shuffle them back into the deck. It's an off button for the detrimental effects common on the old Neos fusions and a slight power boost. As much as we look back at something this simple and sparse to scoff at now, this is sort of just what field spells were at the time. This one is a field that comes in the form of a spell. Boring, perhaps, but it is thematic and on brand. Obviously, it begs for a retrain like Skyscraper does, and I honestly feel that wouldn't not be in the cards at this point, especially after that new Flame Wingman kind of broke that particular glass ceiling. Okay, I thought we agreed the Cocoons weren't canon. These literally all do basically the same thing. Cocoon Rebirth, Cocoon Party, Contact, Cocoon Veil, they swap out a Chrysalis for a Spacian. Or the reverse, in Cocoon Party's case. And one of them is a bad trap card. Alright? Cool. Big whoop. Moving on. Space Gift is a normal spell that reads, draw one card for each different Neo-Spacian you control. I mean, if you manage to be in the unlikely situation that your opponent is so asleep at the wheel or bad that they allowed you to swarm the field with Neo-Spacians and manage to search or open this card, you could get some decent draws out of it. Yeah. Sure. Why not? Convert Contact is a normal spell, and if you control no monsters, you send 2 Neo-Spacians, one from your hand and one deck, to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. A technically better draw card, but you either have to be losing or open it right away and have it be basically the first thing you activate for it to mean anything for you. I feel like you'd probably just be better off running a modern pot card or triple tactics. Lord knows you're gonna get negated by Ash no matter what you do, so you might as well commit to the bit. Common Soul is a continuous spell, and it reads, select one face-up monster on the field to activate this card. Special summon one Neo-Spacian from your hand to the same side of the field as the selected monster. The selected monster gains attack equal to the attack of the monster that was special summoned by this effect. Not actually that bad for way back in the day. Pretty much the best card for getting a Spacian out if you've already got Neos in play. If there was a better way to search it, I could see this being useful in some combos with Connector in some way. Honestly, it probably should have just been an effect that was on Neo-Space. Did not age very well, but it did what it was supposed to when it mattered. Contact Out is a quick play spell that reads, return one Neos fusion you control to the extra deck. If all fusion material monsters listed on that fusion are in your deck, you can special summon them. It's diffusion for Neos. Honestly, I feel like this should have been an effect that was standard on all Neos fusions, or at the very least, something that could have been given to them via a continuous spell, or, you know, Neo-Space or something. It would have been nice to be able to use a fusion, then be able to set up another one right away, at least once a turn, or at the bare minimum, get your stuff back in the end phase. But as a dedicated card, it's kind of awkward and doesn't even have the niche but useful utility of similar cards like Diffusion or Desynchro. Reverse of Neos is a quick play spell that reads, activate only when a face-up Neos fusion you control is destroyed. Special summon one elemental hero Neos from your deck in attack position, and it gains 1,000 attack and is destroyed during the end phase. Some kind of awkward red-headed step-cousin of Hero Signal with probably some ability to be useful and maybe a niche OTK that I couldn't even begin to comprehend if you're like absolutely insane. Instant Neo-Space is an equip spell that reads, equip only to a fusion monster that lists Neos as material. It does not have to activate its effect during the end phase to shuffle into the extra deck. If the equipped monster leaves the field, you can special summon one Neos from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Neo-Space on the go, and a sort of version of that recursion idea we were just talking about a minute ago. Again, maybe if this was standard on the continuous spell or just regular old Neo-Space, we'd maybe have a starting line to talk about here. Neos Force is an equipped spell that reads, equip only to Neos, it gains 800 attack. When it destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can do a Flame Wingman. During the end phase, shuffle this card into the deck. It's a small Neos boost with a Flame Wingman effect, and shuffles back into the deck during the end phase. Yeah, guys, real cute. I'm sure Takeshi down the hall from the writer's room was having a friggin' laugh riot in his Konami cubicle about this one. Great job. Wrath of Neos is a normal spell that reads, target one Neos in your monster zone, shuffle that elemental hero Neos into the deck, and if you do, destroy all cards on the field. The original attack name hero card, and it's honestly pretty decent. With modern support, I can see this being a pretty friggin' nuts turn 2 card in some niche casual situations. Could have been more potential if Konami actually make hero viable on any turn other than the literal first one of the duel with its like 3 total combo lines. Man could dream. We finally move out of the anime and onto the legacy support released after the fact, which actually took a bit into the Zexal era to start happening outside Neos Night. Miracle Contact is a normal spell that reads, shuffle into the deck from your hand, field, or graveyard the fusion materials that are listed on an elemental hero fusion monster that lists Neos as fusion material, then summon that fusion monster from your extra deck, ignoring summoning conditions. Not much else to say here other than, damn, that's pretty good. It does about all you could ask of a Miracle Fusion-inspired card to do for its era, and being locked to a specific sub-archetype like this means it has a lot more room to flex its power. Honestly, I wish regular Miracle Fusion was this good. It's almost a shame this only works on Neos monsters. Mind you, we have plenty of cards that make this thing more accessible now, so... Contact Gate is a normal spell that reads, banish 2 Neo-Spacians with different names from your graveyard to summon 2 Neo-Spacians with different names from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusions. If a face-up fusion monster that lists Neos as material returns from your field to the extra deck, you can banish this card from your graveyard, summon one of your banished Neo-Spacians. You can only activate Contact Gate once per turn. I'm not entirely sure what I think about this one. I guess on one hand it's a pretty good setup for the triple fusions and Cosmo, but it facilitates running a very Spacian heavy build, and while they're not nearly as unplayable as they once were, probably don't want to revolve your entire deck around them when you have much better E-hero options these days. I guess it's fine enough, but it really screams with a want for potential. Neos Fusion is a normal spell that reads, special summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that lists exactly 2 monsters as material, including Neos, by sending those monsters from your hand, deck, or field to the graveyard, ignoring summoning conditions. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters. If a fusion monster you control that lists Neos as material will be destroyed by battle or effect, or shuffled into the extra deck by its own effect, you can banish this card from your grave instead. If Miracle Contact was a small step for Neos in the modern era, then Neos Fusion is a quantum leap into the future, with an effect that's about as modern fusion spell as you can possibly get. Like most fusion spells made these days, it's following closely in the footsteps of Shadal Fusion by letting you mill the materials from deck, much like Future Fusion back in the day. That unfortunately means you can only summon the basic 2 material fusions with it and none of the extremely broken triple fusions or Cosmo, but it's still got plenty of great targets like Brave Neos for the generic mill, Neos Knight for similar reasons, and fucking Rainbow Neos. Yeah, seriously, the restrictions don't seem so bad when you can summon the hero archetype's most supreme boss monster that easily, and also granted a one-time extra life thanks to the graveyard effect. Not the most relevant card introduced in the modern era of Neos, no, but a pretty damn good one for sure. Generation Next is a quick play spell that reads, if your life points are lower than your opponent's, add to your hand or special summon 1 E-Hero, Karibo, or Neo-Spacian from your deck or graveyard with attack less than or equal to the difference in life points. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot activate cards or the effects of cards with that same name. You can only activate 1 Generation Next per turn. This is a card I've technically covered before, but much like the Neos retrains, it's one of those ones that could easily be classified a number of ways, so it qualified for this video too. Anyway, I still really like this card, but man, is it super held back by not letting you use the effect of the cards you're grabbing. I get why that restriction was put into place. It did release when A Hero Lives was limited, after all, so the rampant fear of Darklaw was very much in effect at the time. But in the long run, that choice has aged like milk. It's a shame, too, since if it didn't have that effect, it would really go a long way in helping heroes and Spacians out by giving them their own archetypal monster reborn and a consistency boost. Not that we need more of that, but A Hero Lives can have its flaws is all I'm saying. Double Hero Attack is a quick play spell that reads, if you control a fusion monster that lists Neos as material, target one hero fusion in your graveyard and summon it, ignoring summoning conditions. You can only activate this card once per turn. Another card I technically covered before due to my belief I wouldn't ever get the chance to again, but it's one of those half steps Konami made to bridge the gap between Heroes and Neos before they really committed to the idea. A bit of a head-scratching but cute bit of support that could probably help pure Neos decks back when it released. It's absolutely more playable now though, thanks to the post-Power of the Elements direction of the deck. Neos fusions are currently no stranger to the mainstream hero build, and a more pure hero duelist can get even more mileage out of it. I think it's one of those cards that you might not want to dedicate a permanent spot in your deck to, but it can absolutely be a decent tech option to break out in certain formats to, I don't know, counter the monotony if anything else. EN, Engage Neo-Space is a normal spell that reads, send one Neo-Spacian and one hero monster, one from your hand and one from your deck, to the graveyard to summon one Neo-Spacian monster or one level 5 or higher E-hero from your deck, and if you do, add one Polymerization from your deck or grave to the hand. If you special summon Neos by this effect, it gains 1000 attack. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusions the turn you activate this card. You can only activate one copy per turn. A Ferris for the Ferris Intolerant, this card is actually insanely powerful of an opening move if you know what you're doing. Assuming one of the cards you send to the grave is a Shadow Mist and the monster you summon is Spirit of Neos, or Rejector, that's a solid +2 in card advantage right off the bat. To put it into perspective, that's a potentially higher plus than Pot of Greed. If it weren't for the Neo-Spacians being so outdated and the modern hero deck building methodology being so reliant on links, this card would make the Vision Engine look like a joke. Except you, Vion. You're still cool. It gives you practically everything you could possibly need right from the word go, and if you're okay with sacrificing your ability to go into Wonder Driver for a turn, an absolute must-try. It's also really neat thematically in that it combines a lot of the effects of a lot of old Neo support cards, but makes them actually good. And it's got Candelato, the Beast of Light, which is a bonus. Instant Contact is a normal spell that reads, pay 1000 life points to special summon one level 7 or lower E-hero or Neo-Spacian from your extra deck, ignoring summoning conditions, but if Neos is neither on your field or graveyard, apply this effect to it. It cannot attack, its effects are negated, and also returns to the extra deck during the end phase, and you can only activate one copy per turn. Another instant banger of a support card that almost immediately saw a decent amount of play, and even convinced some diehard meta-hero players to give Neos a try. It was instrumental in making Marine Neos work, and still is an okay tech card in some non-hero decks if you want a quick level 7 on board for whatever you may need that for. It doesn't see a lot of play anymore, but when it came out it saw a lot of testing. Unfortunately, with the release of Flame Wingman's Retrain, which basically did the exact same thing but like far better, it's fallen by the wayside a bit, but you can't really blame anyone for preferring to play Flame Wingman instead. I mean, come on. EN Shuffle is a normal spell that reads, shuffle one E-hero or Neo-Spacian you control into the deck, and if you do, summon one E-hero or Spacian with a different name from your deck. You can banish this card from your graveyard, shuffle from your graveyard into the deck either one E-hero monster or one Neo-Spacian, or one Neos, and then draw one card. You can only use each effect of EN Shuffle once per turn. This thing kinda scared a lot of people upon releasing by being basically another copy of E-Call or Hero Lives, but you may notice that hasn't exactly come to pass. You don't see it super often due to the limitations of what you can actually shuffle back with it. However, it probably is the most efficient way to summon Spirit of Neos and Ejector and start out a ton of combos. Flaws it may have, it's a downright fun card to play and does some really interesting stuff that you can only really expect from an adaptation of an anime card, and I'm not gonna lie, I kinda miss that. There's also a spell card called Cross Change that was also from the anime that did more or less the same thing. Potential future connection to Mass Change, perhaps? Much to think about. EN Wave is a continuous spell that reads, if your elemental hero monster is used as a material for a fusion summon and sent to the graveyard or banished, except during the damage step, you can special summon one Neo-Spacian monster or one elemental hero Neos from your deck. If a Neo-Spacian monster or elemental hero Neos you control or in your graveyard is shuffled into your deck or extra deck, except during damage step, you can special summon one elemental hero monster from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of EN Wave once per turn. This is less of a high point. I wouldn't call it garbage or anything. Its use is certainly a hell of a lot more niche than the other cards from this wave. It's a bit clunky with the wording and, again, assumes a much heavier reliance on Neo-Spacians than ideal. Potential is there, but this theme isn't quite fleshed out enough for it right now, even after all this time. Another one of those wait and see kind of cards. Fusion Over is a quick play spell that reads, target one face-up monster on the field, reveal one elemental hero, Neo-Spacian, or level 10 monster from deck or extra deck, and the targeted monster's name can be treated as the revealed monsters if used as a fusion material this turn. Send the revealed monster to the graveyard, and if you have elemental hero Neos on your field or in your graveyard, otherwise, shuffle it back into the deck. If revealed from the hand, shuffle it into the main deck. You can only activate one overfusion per turn. Because of the nature of the new search clause from Spirit onward, this is one of those, not really a hero support card, but Neos exists, so I guess technically it counts because you can search it situations. There is thankfully only 2 of these at the time of this video's creation, so don't worry. But yeah, this is kind of super poly support, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. It's supposedly a reference to Rainbow Neos as summoned in the show.
Wow, beautiful, wow.
But I don't really see what use they expected this to have. Now, well, gotta have your weird experimental pack filler somewhere, I guess. Battle of Sleeping Spirits is the aforementioned second card, and it's a quick play that reads, each player can special summon one monster from their graveyard that was destroyed by battle this turn in attack position. And if you special summoned Neos by this effect, if it battles your opponent's monster this turn, its attack becomes double during damage step only. You can only activate 1 copy per turn. An extremely specific one-off card used by Jaden in his duel with Braun, printed with Neos in the name because that's just what we do now, I guess. Can you imagine if other cards did this? Like, if Heroes Rule 2 randomly brought up, like, Clayman or something? Nah, well. Anyways, the card is obviously pretty terrible and very situational. 2006 is back, baby! We never left! Next is a normal trap that reads, special summon any number of monsters with different names from your hand or graveyard in defense position that are all Neo-Spacian monsters or Neos, but negate their effects, and as long as you control any of those special summon monsters face up, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusions. You can only activate 1 next per turn, and if you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. Both a chilling, horrifying reminder that Nex existed at one point, and a decent trap card, more so meant for the era of Miracle Contact. Back when it was still expected that you kept your Sparkmen and your Scarabs separated for bad behavior. If you're going all in on the Spacians, it's a pretty damn powerful card to throw out if you can survive until your 3rd turn, and an okay opening play if you draw it right at the start. Odd choice for your first non-monster pure hero hand trap. It's no evenly matched, but it'll get your fusions out, and I guess that counts for something. Nice artwork, too. Our final back row card is Favorite Contact, a normal trap that reads, special summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that mentions a hero monster as material, ignoring its summoning conditions, by placing the fusion materials mentioned on it on the bottom of the deck in any order from among the monsters in your hand, field, graveyard, and or banished monsters. If you placed elemental hero Neos into the deck, neither player can return the monster special summoned by this effect to the extra deck. You can only activate 1 Favorite Contact per turn. This card is exactly what I was talking about when I mentioned Miracle Contact being innovated on. This is probably one of the best hero fusion cards ever made. Being able to summon basically whatever the hell you want, using materials from wherever the hell you want. Save the deck, obviously, but the only caveat to that is that it's not a legit fusion summon in the eyes of, I don't know, the Lord, I guess. So you won't get any effects that are very specific about requiring a fusion summon and fusion materials and not just a generic special summon. It's a trap card, yes, but it allows for some pretty great setup. And if you activate it at the right time in your opponent's turn, it won't really matter anyway. It's also one of the few ways to get heroes back from being banished, further driving nails in the coffin that was Parallel World Fusion's extremely non-existent usefulness. Alongside Magistry Alchemist, which, by the way, an extreme shame that that card came out before it could be made searchable like this card, in my opinion, can easily hold the title of the perfect hero trap card. But hey, wait a minute. Who's that on the artwork? Neos and Flare Wingman? Could it be there's a monster that this card wants you to summon specifically? That's right, folks. I've saved the best for last. The ultimate hero monster, the supreme final boss, and the pinnacle of Jaden Yuki's deck. Elemental hero Shining Neos Wingman. A level 8 light warrior fusion with 3100 attack and 2500 defense. It requires 1 Neos and 1 Wingman fusion, and it must be fusion summoned. Gains 300 attack for each monster in your graveyard. Also, cannot be destroyed by card effects. If this card is special summoned, you can destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of different attributes among the monsters on the field. You can only use this effect of Elemental Hero Shining Neos once per turn. If this card destroys a monster by battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. I found myself incapable of keeping this card anywhere but the bookend of this video. This may be the final time I ever do a video like this, and on this massive of a scope, and I want us to go out on the highest note possible. This is Neo's Wingman, the cover card of Power of the Elements, and the symbol of how strong this new union of Neos and elemental heroes is. Like me, you may have pondered over the years, who is the ultimate hero boss monster? Plasma, Rainbow Neos, Cosmo, Divine, Destroy Phoenix Enforcer? No. None of those cards are the ultimate hero. Not to me. To me, this card is it. The perfect symbol of what this deck is capable of. Is it as overwhelmingly powerful as some of those cards? As technical as Phoenix Enforcer? Overwhelming as Cosmo? As devastating as Rainbow? Or flashy as Divine? No, perhaps not. But it is a powerful card that can single-handedly wipe out your opponent if you time things just right. It's a card that goes onto the field, and if summoned the right way, is very unlikely to leave it. It's got all of the iconic ability of Shining Flare Wingman, and all the versatility and iconic status of Neos. It's a Neos monster, and it's a classic E-hero. It's Jaden's two biggest boss monsters put together. If you're down and out, it can turn everything around in one move. A duel is never over until the last card is played, and you can't get a better final card, a better last resort, than the two most iconic embodiments of the elemental heroes to use together to create one supreme monster, a symbol of the unity of these two deck themes. Couldn't have asked for a better card to be given, and I especially couldn't have asked for a better card to end the video on. Neos has had a turbulent history. In its original form, it was considered an unplayable disaster from the word go, even more so than the actual E-heroes, and those already had a reputation for being more form than function. And as times moved forward, they really didn't. Other decks came and went that did Neos better than Neos himself, and even his brother deck, the E-Heroes, left him in the dust, save a couple of homages that weren't much more than a shrugging acknowledgement. But you know, I respect Neos and the Neo-Spacians. When they finally got their time in the sun, they managed to integrate back into the hero archetype mega cluster in their own way, without following the trends set by more popular quote-unquote viable archetypes like Aster's Funhouse of Friends over there. Neos was different. Is different. Is it the greatest deck in the world on its own? No, it's not. But neither is Elemental Heroes, and it managed to be creative and unique enough that it finally found a home with its brethren, like it always should have been from the start, as an equal party that brought its own good ideas to the table. Neos isn't a laughingstock anymore, and to me, he's the face of the deck again. I used to think Neos wasn't my card, that I'd never feel the same way about him that I did my favorites that I'd forged for myself, like Absolute Zero or the Mask Heroes. I thought he was Jaden's card, just some anime nonsense that I didn't have to worry about. Now I see differently. Neos, in both the anime and in real life, represented a breath of fresh air, a desire to step forward and evolve. Just when Jaden felt he was at the point where he had begun to stagnate, the Neo-Spacians showed up and gave his deck a new lease on life. And the same was true of me. This has been my white whale video. The bright white abyss that stares back at me, a reflection of my own soul, cast full before my mortal eyes. Shit's taken a long time, yo. I started writing this video when Power of the Elements was announced. That was, like, 3 years ago? Look, I've had a rough go of it when it comes to my relationship with Yu-Gi-Oh!, and a lot of that does get expressed through my favorite deck. I've had a turbulent history with heroes, and the way they're viewed by the community at large. It's hard being so deeply passionate and fully in love with something that is seen as the generic normie deck that everyone's had a turn at. But elemental heroes mean the world to me. They're everything Yu-Gi-Oh! Is for me. They're everything that makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Important to me. And I've always been very defensive and protective over them. I've written and rewritten this video script countless times, often because they kept adding more and more cards that I felt I needed to address, so I pushed it back, and because of my lifelong complicated history with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community just got more and more negative. That's the key thing that kept this video from releasing for so long. Trying to tackle my complicated feelings about being a duelist. And what I've learned is this. Chasing perfection, comparing yourself to others in life or in a game, is a fool's errand. This deck will never be meta, and it'll never be weak either. I'm not going to be the guy who pushes these cards into the bright glow of competitive glory, and neither will you. But it doesn't matter if you use DPE or Rainbow Neos, Absolute Zero or Inferno Wing. In the end, it's all one deck. There's only so far you can push something. A limit to what you can do, and that's okay. Hero doesn't need to be a contest between what cards are the most objectively consistent and powerful. Ask yourself this. If you're facing down Tier 0 meta, decks that have an answer to practically everything, what else can you really do but put a little faith and maybe hope for a bit of luck? Did that extra Malicious really turn the table for you? Or did that Aqua Dolphin really do just as well as any of the other monsters that got negated? Most importantly, did you ever stop and remember to have fun? In the end, it's all about your own choices. You can build this deck 1,000 different ways from Sunday, and it'll still probably stay about as strong as any other variant someone else thought up. That's the true magic of Heroes. They're an open sandbox. Right around the time that Power of the Elements was announced, I hit a breaking point. A time when I had no idea what to do anymore. I couldn't even look at my deck anymore. No matter how much of a break I would give myself, I just couldn't make it work. I was floundering. I needed something, anything, to pull me out of my own head, to make me break free of this rut I had created in my own mind and actually enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. I needed to start seeing my cards, my soul, again. And that's when an old hero arrived from Neo-Space. A hero that sparked my imagination again. That gave me the perspective I needed to break out of a near lifelong mental rut. And I remembered why all of this is supposed to be fun. I finally remembered that the most important thing about dueling again, what it means to duel how you love, and love how you duel. Because that's the power that's held within one single card.
このたった1枚のカードに秘められた力だからだ。